Hi, I'm Dhruti Shah, and this is my podcast, Have You Thought About? I'm a writer who loves to find out about what passions people are pursuing, especially if they're managing to blend together all their skills in unusual ways. In each edition, I'm going to chat with someone I find particularly interesting and who's managed to fit things together in their life or profession that you might not think of as an obvious match. Here, I'm talking to cake designer Philippa Larbi of Pippa Martinson Cakes. Hi Philippa, I am very excited to have you on the podcast because I think you're a very creative person. Now, you're an entrepreneur, a business person, you have a successful cake design business in the UK. So, how have you ensured success in what can be a really competitive field?
I have been making cakes since about 2017, 2018, and my focus is on celebration cakes and wedding cakes. So if people are having a significant event like a christening, baptism, bar mitzvah, wedding, 40th celebrations, birthdays, that is where I generally come in and help them to find a memorable way to celebrate their occasion.
But you have quite elegant cakes. They're quite classy, and you use things like edible flowers and a variety of materials. And just to say first, if people want to see them, because we're on a podcast at the moment, where can people go and see your designs? But also, what is it about your style that makes Pippa Martinson Cakes?
That is a big question. So first of all, you can find me at pippamartinsoncakes.com. You can also find my work on Instagram at Pippa Martinson Cakes. I've got a separate page for my children's and themed cakes, and that is Pippa Martinson Kids, so KIDS. What makes my work Pippa Martinson Cakes? That's a really difficult thing because I think as anybody who's creative, you're always evolving, you're always working towards improving your craft, creating better styles, finding things that really move you to create. So I don't think necessarily that I have a specific style that you can point to and say, that's a Pippa Martinson Cakes. Although I had a client recently who I was sort of designing a cake with, and I sent her some ideas, some of my old cakes, and we're talking about what she wanted, and it was a significant birthday. She was walking along the road and she met a friend, and she was looking at the cakes that I'd sent to her, and the friend said to her, "Oh, is that a Pippa Martinson cake?" And I thought, oh, okay, that's a really interesting thing because I never particularly thought of me having a discernible, identifiable style that people would look at and immediately say, I know who made that. But apparently, in my local community, I do. I suppose one of the things that I would say about my style is clean and elegant. I can't do anything messy. I have tried, I fail every time. I say to myself that it's minimalist, it isn't, but I like the idea of things being really clean, precise, and I don't like things to be messy. I'm a bit of a perfectionist, so if I'm going to make a cake, I want it to look the way that I want it to look, which is pretty much perfect. So I struggle with just good enough. Sometimes you have to veer that. What is my aesthetic? I have a friend who's another cake maker, and we work together sometimes. We're really good friends. We see each other practically every week. We speak to each other practically every day. We have similar aesthetics. Again, she likes really clean things, but hers is a really modernist approach, whereas mine sort of is a combination of something that is really modern and something that's really sort of classic and old. I like things that are a little bit older, perhaps. And that's why perhaps I have a cake in my store called the Rococo, and it's all about frills and curves and gold and embellishments.
That sounds wonderful. But the other thing is, you actually have a reputation not just for the artistry, but a tasty bake. So how do you find your voice, I guess, or I don't even know what the language is. How do you find your voice in this cake world by having that design, because you are a cake designer, but also the fact that your cakes are quite good?
I think it's a work in progress always. So you don't rest on your laurels. If you make one cake and you think that was, for example, I make this carrot cake that everybody says is one of the best carrot cakes that they've ever eaten. That is just the simple carrot cake that I have made. And then I was thinking about, well, if you've got this wonderful basis, why can't you then create something on top? And so I was thinking, how can I enhance this? So I was thinking ginger or orange, add more and more interesting flavors, or caramelizing nuts in order to actually give it more zing inside your level. So the different layers of cake, you can actually add more flavor to the layers of cake. So when I started, I used to use every recipe. My vanilla cake was maybe a Mary Berry cake. My chocolate cake was maybe a French recipe. I just used all manner of recipes, and I would try the ones that I liked the most, and that is what I would give to my clients. And then I went to this amazing class by this woman in Australia called Tao, Thao, and she runs a company called Don't Tell Charles. Honestly, I owe a huge amount to her. So she developed a system where she bakes only with cream, not with butter. She has the system that all the cake recipes come from the same stem. So they have exactly the same portions, they have the same ingredients. So butter, there's no sugar, it's cream and eggs, etc. I use that same recipe, and then over time, I've made the recipe more my own. So I have added or taken out some flour, added some corn flour, actually added more oil. And in fact, there's no oil in the recipe, but I've added oil to it. And you make changes as you feel necessary so that the cake is more your own, the flavor is more your own. But in terms of coming up with flavor profiles, it is a try and test. Every single time I make a recipe, I try to enhance the flavors. So one of the things I learned during the last 5 years of baking or so is when you add lemon to sugar, it's all well and good if you're making a lemon cake, that's great. You can add your lemon whenever you want to add it. But to actually enhance the lemon flavor, you massage the lemon zest into the sugar. And I cannot tell you the improvement that makes to the lemon cake. Amazing. It just takes it from a lemon cake to a lemon cake, if that makes sense.
Top secrets right there. Top tips right there. You also teach workshops, but does that help you be sustainable? And are you ever worried you're going to teach someone who's going to end up becoming a competitor to you in the local area and beyond?
I did think about that. I teach a lot of people. In fact, I'm preparing to teach today. So today I'm teaching 2 people and I'm doing a project with another person today. So no, I really don't worry about that because I think there is space for everyone. I have a client I taught maybe about 2 or 3 years ago now. She comes and does update lessons, etc. I think she's now on her 3rd wedding cake. So she's made all the wedding cakes for her nieces. And yeah, so every time she's going to make another one, she comes back and says, hey, I need a little bit of more instruction in relation to this particular style. So we did a marble cake the last time. So using color in buttercream to create a marble effect. So she came round and we had a half a day of marbling cake. I am delighted with her work. Whenever I see people producing really good work, and I know that I was the source of their learning, I think that's incredible. I don't think that you should ever be afraid of your competitors. I think you should always be thinking about your own journey. When I started, I wasn't the best cake maker, but I was lucky that people liked what I did enough to keep me going. And same with lots of other people. You can't compare your now with somebody's beginning. You've always got to compare yourself to yourself. You're running your own race. You're not running somebody else's race. And I think that's really, really important when you are a business owner. Yes, look at your competitors, see what your competitors are doing, but ultimately you are producing your work, not theirs. I actually also think that people are coming to you not just for the work that you do, but the experience that you give them. And so if you're able to give them a really good experience, they'll come back. I have clients who come back for every single celebration cake that they've ever had. This lady, I did her wedding cake. I've now done all her children's birthday cakes the last 3 or 4 years.
I like that because your path to cake goddess, to cake designer, wasn't linear. Now you had a legal career. So how did that come about and why move from, I guess, what was a guaranteed path? Because being a business person is not easy, especially in this current climate.
It really isn't. 2024 was hard. In fact, every single year that I've had has been hard or difficult in a particular way. 2024, I felt like I was running really hard to stand still. That's how I described it to my friends. It was really, really difficult. And you don't show that face to your client. You just always just do the best with every single client and every commission that you're given. And it's really important to do that. Stepping away from law was really hard. I was just burnt out. My characteristic is to work hard. That's it. If I'm working hard for someone, I will work hard. I will always do that. And I worked too hard. I had a boss once who described me as a Russian icebreaker. And there are these ships that go around breaking ice so that other ships can actually then follow through in a waterway. That's what she described me as. She said, I could put anything on you or give you any work and you'll just find a way and you'll just keep breaking that ice and you keep doing that work. It is a great thing that I am that focused and that determined, but it is also a bad thing because then I have absolutely no boundaries because I will keep working and keep working and keep working. I just did not look after myself in any significant way. I really didn't at all. I'm learning boundaries now, but even sometimes there are times when a client will contact me at 11 o'clock and say, can I have these flavors? I'll write back to them. Whereas most people wouldn't. They would wait until the morning and then write back. But no, I will write back to them. This is something that I'm really trying to unlearn. With my legal career, that's exactly what I did. I just had no boundaries. I worked really hard all the time. And the last job that I had was not the right one for me. I probably ought to have left about 3 years before I did. I really, really liked the person that I was working for. Our head of department was somebody who I had a huge amount of respect for, and I think who also reciprocated that respect. We were good colleagues. We worked together well. But at the time I was doing a maternity cover, and when the maternity person came back, they decided to give me another job, which was like a member of the team, as a senior member of the team, but we're all pretty much the same level. And that really didn't allow me to grow. I got one thing from it. Well, I trained to become a mediator, and which was a really, really good skill to have. And I love that skill to this day. It really is such an amazing thing to do. It's incredible when you're able to translate what somebody is saying to another person in a way that they can understand, because a lot of miscommunication is about misunderstanding. One person will say something and the other person will hear something entirely different, and they'll hear it within the veil of their grief, their anger, their trauma, their disappointment. That's how they receive that information. But if you, as a mediator, are able to understand that person and then be able to translate what the original person is trying to say to them, it really amazing. It does incredible things. And just making sure that people feel heard. So if somebody's saying something about their distress, their disappointment, their anger, and you're able to then actually just hold that with them and make them understand that you hear them, it goes a hugely long way to being able to resolve a dispute. So that is what I learned from my last job, which I appreciate enormously. I started off as an employment lawyer and loved it, really loved it. Cut and thrust of litigation, really exciting. I've now learned to say that I was actually really good at it, really good at it. And then I left for various reasons. And then I started a new job, and this is the new job that I should have left much earlier. And I ended up doing dispute resolution in a regulatory body. That was great. I really honestly learned so much. And I also learned so much about management in that job. Took away a lot of things, but I became really unwell. I was really unwell for about a year. I think we're always really nervous about talking about mental health when it comes to people who are, I don't know, people who are high achievers, or people who work very hard, or people who have a particular reputation to maintain. But yeah, I completely burnt out. And the only thing I had left was my turntable on which I would just turn a cake, make a cake, decorate a cake. And happened just during the pandemic, actually. So that pandemic year was the year that I was really sick. And yeah, in the end, I ended up having to go on medication to actually help, which has helped and continues to help. I think that a lot of people should be really open about medication for mental well-being. It's just like, I need ibuprofen because my back hurts after a huge amount of lifting massive heavy cakes. That's what, for me, sertraline is. That's exactly what it is. And it's a shame that it got to that stage, but you can't be in Russian icebreaker forever and not have like bits that are flying off or bits that need more oil, or do you know what I mean? You just need a little bit of help sometimes. So yeah, that was my entry into the world of baking, and I love it. I just really enjoy it, and I enjoy the people. I have some amazing people. In fact, two really amazing women who I work with sometimes. Justine Campbell John. We speak to each other every single day. And then there's a wonderful lady called Dawn Welton, whose cake school I've attended. So she brings these amazing cake designers from around the world to her studio, and we learn from them. Tao from Don't Tell Charles was my entry into that world, and I did a class with her. And since then, I've done some amazing classes, and that has really elevated my work, I think.
I love the fact that you use the term turntable, because that's something else I also wanted to bring in here, in that you had opera in the mix, classical music, like that also features in what makes Philippa. So can we share a little bit more about that?
So my mum will say that she heard my voice at the age of 2 when I was at nursery, and she thought, this girl needs singing lessons. Apparently, she heard me singing behind a door. We were doing some kind of show or something, and she heard me singing behind the door. And she was like, this girl is absolutely going to have singing lessons. So I don't know how far I believe that. But when I was 11, I went to boarding school, and I was taught by this lovely lady called Sue Pilkington. Do you know when you have a teacher who has got so much character, so much life, so much enthusiasm? That was her. And I started singing lessons with her. And then she left maybe when I was about 13, and I had other singing teachers. This amazing lady called Alison Walker Moorcroft. And then 19, great singing teacher called Marjorie Thomas. She's really famous. I think she was the very first person who sung Hermia in A Midsummer Night's Dream that was written by Benjamin Britten. She's an extraordinary voice, really beautiful voice. When I was young, I always thought that I was going to be an oratorio singer. I always thought that I was going to be doing something to do with classical music. I was classically trained. That's where I thought I was going to go. And then I was 17, I had an audition. In fact, I had two auditions. One was in Oxford, and the other one was at the Royal Academy of Music. And I think to this day, oh my word, I can't believe that I sang for Dame Janet Baker. Cannot to this day believe that I sang in front of her. And I had, when you're 17, you have no sense of the magnitude of what you're doing. And that's how I felt. But anyway, in the end, I decided to follow the legal route, but I always sang, sang in church choirs, sang as a soloist. I had singing teachers all the time. And my current singing teacher is amazing. Her name is Lydia Marcioni. She was a chorus member at English National Opera. And I met her when I was around about 30-ish. And I just really wanted to just sing again. And she happened to live in Ealing. And yeah, I have sung with her ever since. I love her. I think she's such an incredible teacher. She actually managed to wangle me an audition at English National Opera actually a few years ago. It was great. One of the best experiences of my life. Didn't get the job, but it was just the most amazing thing. In 2013, I decided that I was just going to give singing a bash, and I sang for a year at Morley Opera School. It was absolutely brilliant. I've made so many amazing friends from it, but it was the first time that I wasn't just dipping my toe into singing and then sort of dipping it back out and dipping my toe in. I fully immersed myself into that experience and loved it. It improved my voice now, and I realized I was actually a good actress. I didn't know this, but yeah, just the opportunity just to spend an evening, 3 hours, 3 sessions a week, two during the week and one at the weekend. And then after that, I would just get in my car, my little Beetle, and I would drive to English National Opera, park my car somewhere down the side street, buy a ticket for whatever was showing, and then go and listen to it and spend the evening there. So I spent a lot of time doing that, and I loved it. I loved it. I mean, I sing now. I sing more to myself and to my turntable, to the sink, and to the trees outside than I do to real people. I mean, this year I'm going to turn 50, and I really want to make an effort to get back to actually making music with other people. So, yeah, whenever I get a chance to go and do a come and sing, which is like this invitation for you to join lots of other people and an orchestra to sing a piece that could be anything. I think I've done a come and sings with Foray's Requiem a couple of times. I've done a come and sing with Valdi's Gloria. I've done a come and sing with the Messiah. Loved it. It was absolutely wonderful. If I get an opportunity to do a come and sing, I love it, because baking or cake design is such an involved profession that you spend most of your evenings, most of your weekends engaged in that. And so that really limits your ability to go off and find things to do during the weekend, because by the time you finish, most people are just like, they're going out to dinner and stuff. They're not necessarily going to be going out to make music. So yeah, it has been difficult to find my way forward, but I'm actually making a point of going to my piano regularly now to actually just use the voice. I mean, I was talking to my sister yesterday, and we were talking about how difficult it is sometimes to sort of find your way through your path through life. And I was saying, we are really lucky in this age that we're living in, because in previous times or previous ages, people have been committed to one job and that's it. They have not been able to move around, to do something different. We're really lucky that if you have more than one skill, that you're able to actually deploy them, or rather explore them and then deploy them. You can work really, really hard to improve a skill. You don't have, I mean, there are lots of skills that we all have that are not innate. We worked at them in order to get them. That's the same. That's what I think about music. That's what I think about baking. That's what I think about being a lawyer. These are not all innate skills that I had. These are all things that I had to work at. I mean, if I show you the very first cake that I made, you would be shocked by how ugly it was. It was the ugliest thing. It really seriously was. But I have worked really, really hard in order to improve my skill. And being a perfectionist helps in that regard, in that you are not going to stop until you get it right. That's really important. And so that's what I also teach my clients when they come and sit there. I think, well, practice makes perfect. If you keep working at something, you are bound to get better at it. This is the thing. I was talking about the difference between a skill that you have and a gift that you have. My gift is singing. My skill is baking, cake decorating. The gift that I have was being able to actually to have a beautiful, musically clear voice and all that kind of stuff. I can work at it to make it better, because that's then improving that gift. But I could not make a cake to save my life to start off with, but I was determined to improve that skill. I just didn't have it. And so I wanted to be better at it. And so I worked really hard at it. I have an innate ability to sing. When I don't work at it, it is very obvious. I'm disrespecting my skill, if that makes sense, or my gift. But I know that I can sing a song and it'll be absolutely fine. And because I have had years and years of training and working at it, I can open my mouth and sing a reasonably good song. But I will not, because I'm not doing it every single day, I'm not training it every single day. I'm just not going to be singing Dido at the Royal Opera House. I'm not, because I'm not training it every single day. That's the thing with skills. If you don't work at them, you don't improve them, you don't get better at them.
And that was cake designer Philippa Larbi. Do you have an interdisciplinary life? Because I would love to hear from you, and perhaps we can chat on this podcast that goes with my newsletter, which is also called Have You Thought About? It can be found via www.druktishah.com. Please join me next time for a fun conversation with another guest who likes to mix up lots of things in their life. Do listen to past episodes and rate and review the podcast if you've enjoyed it. Thank you to Rian Shah for the music.